Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Is It Worth It, where I go around the globe and the internet trying to find products that will make you faster or a better artist or just make the experience that much more enjoyable. Today's episode we go back to markers, as it seems to be the case with this channel. It's markers. And the thing is that as I started teaching again, I've realized that students want to use markers, and I'm pretty sure you guys want to use markers too. It is a fast medium, colorful, and it just allows you to have really great product as an end result. The problem is that there are thousands, it seems like, of markers out there, and as we look on Amazon and Wish and the internet to try and find markers that fit our budget, we pick up everything. So we get something for $20 that has 120 markers, and we just hope that they are semi-good. And in that vein, I was gifted LIGHTWISH. Okay, I've never heard of these markers before, but I'm pretty interested in them, and I know for a fact that these are budget markers, and like I said, they were gifted to me because they were budget markers and they wanted to see what I thought of them. So we are going to try one of these budget markers and we are going to find out if LIGHTWISH is indeed worth it. Alright, so first off, you get to see that they've already contained it in this mesh bag, very soft, but it contains all 60 markers right in the bag, which is always nice. It's got a little handle, so that's cool. Nothing too fantastical about this bag. It's just a bag that has markers in it. Simple zipper design. I really don't like these bags because as soon as you open up, they kind of do that, and so it doesn't actually hold them together in a nice organized manner, right? But the first thing that I noticed when I opened it up is that these colors are very vibrant as far as the caps, and they're kind of all over the place. Like, you don't necessarily get a full range of gray or a lot of markers that would go from your light gray to dark gray, or I mean green, light green to dark green. It seems as though there's a giant jump between colors. So I mean, these look like they're good. Maybe you get a nice thing. So it seems as though they're going in threes, but even with that, it seems as though there's a kind of a big jump when it comes to the markers. So that's going to be interesting to find out what that's all about. Then this marker is a roundish type marker, right? But it has a triangular shape. So it's round, but it actually has a triangle shape to it, right? So that's a good representation of what this marker housing is like. It seems like a regular marker. The plastic, it feels a little bit more plastic, like it's really slick. It feels very plasticky. Oh. The nibs seem fairly decent on this. And then it has a regular bullet point. They also seem pretty darn decent. Let's check out one of the brighter colors. There's a lot of striation in the actual nib, which is normally not a good sign when you can see that, because it means that the nib doesn't let the ink flow through and it's already showing. But these look, I mean, the nibs seem fine. It's got a nice snap to it, so you know when it's actually closed, which is always good. And then always a plus when the cap actually stays on, right? So that's it. Woo! When you start wafting them around, you can definitely smell all the acetone that's in here that makes the alcohol-based marker work. So, all right, let's get into it. Guess we're gonna put these over here. Okay. So, I guess let's just go ahead and start off with these greens. Oh, I guess not too bad. Although I see something already. as they dry. Look at that. Look at how big that jump is. Like that was, I think that was supposed to be the next color. Nope, this one was. Okay. Oops. So we have the 3 closest colors, and you know, these two seemed like they worked. They're almost the same color. And then the next green is just this huge departure from the color. But the thing that really gets me is that how it instantly starts putting in all these white dots, right? It's actually going in between the pores of the paper, the acetone that's in there, and it's really bringing up the white dots in there. That's one of the sheer signs of a low grade marker, is how the actual ink interacts with the paper. And here you can see that it brings up all these little white dots, and that's a problem. And then from what I can tell from each marker, as it bleeds out, which most markers are supposed to do, right? Because it's wet and it bleeds out a little bit, but it has this ring of color. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it actually has this ring of color that's going around it, which shouldn't be that big of an issue when you are inking. So if you have an ink line there, then it shouldn't be that big of an issue, but the fact still remains that it does do that. So if you are trying to do freestanding colors, that might be a huge issue. All right, so right now I'm looking for the grays, see if we can do a 3-part gray, and we have a cool gray 3 and a cool gray 5 and a cool gray 9. See, now that's horrible. So it does, it's like, here's your cool gray, and let's see, we have blue grays. All right, we have a blue gray 3 and a blue gray 5, and then a blue gray 9. So it always skips the 7. So it's always skipping the 7. 3, 5, 9. So that's kind of weird and makes blending a real problem, due to the fact that, you know, you go from blue gray 3 to a blue gray 5, and those jumps, like I don't even think that the jumps are right. And that's a blue gray 9. And so the problem that you have is you got this light gray coming in. Oops. You have this light blue gray coming in, then it gets instantly darker, like it jumps 2 shades, like that's more than 2 shades, but it gets really, really dark. And then the blue gray 9 is pretty much black, which makes sense because it's the 9 issue, so that's not bad. But the colors, like these markers are really, they really bleed. And then it's getting these lines. Well, the grays don't actually have it, but you can really see how those lines, or I mean the marker, is affecting the paper and bringing in all those white dots. So that's, for me, that's a really big issue when I put my color down, if the dots start popping up. And like I said, that is a sheer sign of a low grade marker. Let's see. Check out these yellows. Yellows are always a good indicator of what kind of marker you got going on, because generally they're very vibrant, and so you have to always check to make sure that they are the right yellow, because like that one's come out a little bit more green. And also when you're using markers and they make that weird like I'm crying sound, right? That's also a sign of a low grade marker, because generally that sound only happens when you're low on ink. So either this is a low grade marker or it's already running out of ink. So those are kind of your 2 options. So the colors, they're not bad, right? The pastel yellow, the lemon yellow, and then the melon yellow. So I think that at least with these markers, if you were to do out a chart, that would be very, very helpful if you did a chart on these. But the yellows actually are interacting with the paper actually the best, to where it's not actually beating up and making all these white dots. So it seems as though the darker the color is with these, the more the dots show up, because you can see them more with the orange here than you can with this yellow. All right. And so I'm going to keep working with these yellows, because now, I mean, we've done the chisel tip and it seems fine, but the ink itself takes a little bit to get out, it seems like. So the ink flow is kind of crazy. But I mean, I gotta admit that the actual nibs are good. They seem good. Although, once again, you can tell when there's a budget marker, because when you make a line, when you first start, it's like when you start and stop, right? You get to see where it beads up, like where you instantly put down your ink, right? A good nib will make that line, the line that you make, right? It'll make it the same even if you put down the marker. And it's not just because you put it down and it starts pooling, because generally speaking, you're making your line pretty quick, right? And with this one, every time you put down the marker, it puts a gob of ink down, and that's not good. It's not the end of the world, right? But it is something to consider. Right? These don't, I mean, so testing the speed, how you can just make a line. It's not bad, but they do pool, right? It is pooling as we move. As we move the marker from start to finish, it does pool. And that's a problem strictly for the fact of if you're trying to make consistent lines, it's always going to be darker on the ends. All right, so you definitely will have to come in and make sure you're doing the circles and make it flow all the way out. Okay, and these, when they're wet, like when these markers are wet and they get put down, they definitely are different. They're a different color. So having a chart would be great. One of the interesting ones, one of the interesting markers that you have are like these vivid pinks or these very unnatural colors. They generally bleed the most when it comes to these budget type markers. But I have to say, this one's not horrible. All right, and it's not as bleedy. It's not bleeding as much as I thought it was going to. It does bleed, so depending on how you use your marker, it does bleed. But the biggest issue that I have with these LIGHTWISH markers so far is the fact that it beads up. Try this one real quick. Try these reds, and then we'll do a drawing and see how that. It's cherry red. Carmine red. I mean, these, you know what? I'm not completely opposed to these markers. The one thing is as it gets darker, these beads pop up, and so they're definitely beading up. So that's a problem. But they don't bleed as much as I thought. The greens have a halo that go around it, and then all of the darker colors, they just bead up. But if it's a lighter color, it doesn't do that as much. Okay, let's see if we can do a drawing. So we just finished doing a drawing with these LIGHTWISH markers, and I have to say that actually once drawing with them, there was a pretty big issue. It was something that I had mentioned, that how they pools, right? How it pools at the very beginning and the very end. And when I started drawing with it and I was trying to get some really good and nice lines together, it would pool, and so I'd have these really big blobs of color as it bled out. So it was really hard to get these nice finer lines with these markers, and that is a big issue. You know, the colors themselves are, you know, they're fine. They're actually vibrant colors, so that's great. I don't appreciate the separation of the ink and paper, so you get to see all those white dots. Like, that's a big problem. Also, they squeak, like they squeak really bad. And so that, you know, that's a sign, like I said, that's a sign of a low budget marker. And for some reason, the nib and the ink concoction don't work well with each other, and they make a whole bunch of noise, which is generally something that you would see if the marker is running out of ink, right? Like it's trying so much to pull the ink and you're just using that chisel or the bullet or the brush, and it's just making these crazy sounds. And so that, with the separation of the colors and the pooling, like the pooling is the biggest issue. Like if I'm trying to get somewhere to make a nice fine line or a detailed line, and it pools at the end, and it's like that slows down my production, because then I have to go back and fix it, or try and fix it, or use a correction marker to fix it. And you know, it's frustrating. It's frustrating if you're trying to get those kind of marks going. So in the end, like, this is not something that I would use on a professional standard, because it's just going to slow me down. But when you are looking at these kind of budget markers, I mean, I guess these are okay. It's good, I would say, for a starter. You know, if you're getting it for your kids and you want to have them with a lot of different markers. But to be honest, there are better budget markers out there, and I've done some reviews on them. I would definitely go check those out, because this one, it just seems as though it would be more frustrating. But if you are trying to get like a bunch of markers and you're trying to give it to your younger children so that they can actually use it for coloring books and stuff like that, I mean, these are going to be fine. They're colored, you know, it gives them, you know, that professional look. But in the end, if you have a student or a, you know, budding professional who is trying to make really decent work with markers, these are not it. These are not going to help you. It's going to be more frustrating than anything else. And so I wouldn't recommend these to anyone above like coloring book status. All right, so that is the conclusion of today's episode of the LIGHTWISH 60 markers. I hope that you got some type of information out of it and liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, go ahead and give this channel a subscribe and hit that bell so that you get a notification every single time I update. Every week I give you guys new content and new reviews. And if you would like to get a certain product reviewed, please don't hesitate to drop me a message, and I will put it on the list. And if it's interesting, it'll go right to the top. So thank you guys so very much, and I will see you at the next video. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to check out some of my other videos, click on the link on your right. Or if you're interested in a more behind the scenes and personal look at what I do on a day-to-day basis, please click on the link that leads you to the vlog. Thank you very much, and we'll see you at the next video.